All right, welcome everybody. This week, I wanted to do a video which was going to be on my transformation, like body transformation for the past 7 years or so, ever since I've been into lifting. But it turned out to be a much bigger job than I anticipated initially. And with Dave, we've been talking for a while that we should get on a second call and discuss some cool stuff that might be interesting to you. So that's what we are doing today. And hopefully this will be interesting. There might be some ranty discussions here, which might not be strictly that practical in terms of like nutrition and training information, but I think there might be some insightful stuff here. So Dave, thank you for taking the time today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm glad I could be your plan B for this week's video.
Okay, like, hey, I couldn't make my video work, so please get on a call with me. But no, actually, what inspired this call is a recent Facebook post that I had, which we are going to be talking about sort of the delusions that we tend to have in lifting and some of the false promises that are kind of floating around in the evidence-based fitness circles just as much as the non-evidence-based fitness circles that are just about juiced up bodybuilders and fitness models pushing supplements and things like that. So we are going to be talking about that for sure. But first things first, I just want to ask you, like, what have you been up to in terms of training and nutrition? Were you working towards any specific goals? And also, how has your sleep been recently?
Sure. Yeah. So, I thought the topics that you sent were great. I mean, I know we have a lot of similar thoughts on that. I just put out a video recently on maintenance training, and then I had another one on training on like vacation. And that's actually very applicable to what I've been doing just because I have been very busy. I moved not too long ago. I was traveling in Europe for a few weeks. I started a new job. Got in like a car wreck, so I'm trying to get a new car. There's like all this craziness that's been going on. I've just kind of been sticking to 3 days a week. There's even been a couple of weeks where I've done two, which I mean, I really haven't regressed at all. I've still hit, some pretty solid numbers. And then nutritionally, just eating at maintenance. So I'm sitting like right at 200 pounds right now. It's pretty comfortable for me. I prefer actually closer to like 190, but 200 is a comfortable place for me. And sleep wise, I always try to get like 7 to 8 if I can. And thankfully, so far, I've been able to do that most nights. Every once in a while, you got a night that you just have to push through and get a lot done. But things have been pretty much at maintenance. The only like specific goals, like really like fitness related goals I've been trying to hit, is just getting my overhead press and pull up numbers back up there, just because like recently I've been pretty close to PR levels without actually even trying. So I figured, if I'm that close to all-time bests just on a maintenance phase, if I push a little harder, I could probably get some all-time bests there. But for the most part, just with how busy it's been, just kind of doing my thing and maintaining.
Yeah. It's funny because we are kind of at the opposite ends of the spectrum right now, because what has been going on with me on that front is, I put out a couple of videos even on like good body fat percentages to maintain. And I've been speaking quite a lot against the idea of trying to stay super lean all the time and how your life quality and just productivity in life and things like that could be objectively better for many people, I think, if they accept still lean and athletic, but slightly higher body fat percentage high. I mean, 12 to maybe 16% body fat or so, and just hovering around there. And that's what I've been doing. But then kind of summer came and we were going for vacation, and, like the regular stuff hit me, what hits most guys. I think I just wanted to look a bit crisper for the holiday. And also it was summer, really warm, and just my appetite naturally dropped a little bit. So at first I just decided to roll with that, and I dropped a little bit of body fat, and I went to the vacation actually looking pretty, not crisp, but lean, probably below 12% body fat or so. And then I went to Bulgaria. I was speaking at that really cool conference with the Aesthetic by Science crew, and there I was busy just doing a lot of things with the guys there. So I dropped a little bit body fat even further. I took those pictures with Mario Tomic that I posted on Instagram, and I was pretty lean. I think you've seen those pictures. I was looking pretty lean at the time, and I was thinking then that, probably on purpose, at least, I won't be getting this lean for a while. If I just go back to gaining, I will probably go up to like 12% body fat or so, and then we'll either do a lean bulk or just comfortably maintain there. So I was like, if I'm this lean already, why not get a little bit leaner and use that as an opportunity to take some proper photos? Because beforehand, anytime I was decently lean, I kind of just wasted those times in that regard. I just shot a couple of really crappy photos in the changing room, and then that was it. And then I went back to gaining. And now I was like, you know what? Let's just take a couple of like not professional necessarily, but high quality photos. And, you know, it can be good for a business and just for myself as something to look at later on. So I decided to get like pretty darn lean. And at the moment, actually, I'm the leanest I've ever been in my life, which is...
Yeah, I was going to ask, what would you estimate your body fat at right now?
You know, and it's really tricky, but probably 8 or below slightly.
Yeah, I mean, you look pretty damn lean, dude. How much do you weigh?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm weighing like 80 kilos, or actually below that, probably. Last week, I hit on the scale 79.6, which has been my all-time low for in the last 2 years, certainly. And yeah, the last time I was below 80 kilos, I either did like a carnivore diet or something like that, where I just dropped a lot of stomach content and glycogen. So that just makes you lighter by default, or just had less muscle than I have currently. So,
right. And you're like, what, like 6 feet tall, right? Or so?
Yeah, 6 foot exactly. And, yeah, it's, you know, at this point, little fluctuations in the amount of water you're retaining or stomach content or bloating can make a huge impact on how lean you are. So I've been playing around with these casein pudding things I've been making lately, and it's delicious and really filling, but it also makes me kind of bloated and doesn't treat my stomach that well. So I've been just retaining a lot of water and was just bloated on a couple of days. So there can be huge ups and downs in the leanness and dryness you have. But yeah, I'm leaner than I've ever been before. And I gotta be honest, on the deficit days that I have, I really feel it. It's a whole different discussion by itself, but honestly, I have gained such a newfound respect and just appreciation for what the bodybuilders are doing by getting down to those insane levels of leanness. And Eric Helms, I mean, the shredded condition that he achieved and the amount of things that he has done in the meanwhile. I mean,
right. Pretty crazy.
It is. And to me, the hunger part is not at all the hardest part, because I'm really good at managing food choices and keeping myself satiated on that front. But just the amount of lethargy that comes throughout some days. I mean, at the end of the day, honestly, after a full day of doing stuff, trying to be productive, and of course the calorie deficit, also training at night, honestly, I don't want to do anything else but just stare out of my head and play video games or something like that. And to think of doing like serious social interactions and doing the super busy stuff that Eric, for example, is participating in, it's just unimaginable to me at this point. So I kind of got a reality check of like what really goes into like a contest prep or something. All of us know that it's hard in theory, but yeah, I think I got a glimpse of what that must feel like, something like that. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even, you know, and like I haven't been contest lean. But when I think about the times that I've like really, really dug deep, it's just, like you said, you just don't want to do anything. It's just how much your body just compensates by making you lethargic and all of that. It's definitely tough. I mean, hunger is a big thing for me, more so because it affects my sleep. And then that, you know, obviously leads to more fatigue, but it definitely, I mean, it just zaps you. It's not something I find terribly desirable.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the two things, sleep and then functioning socially. Because especially for me, I'm a fairly introverted person to begin with. And then add on top of that, the lethargy that comes, the food focus that it comes. Like, I will be completely honest, the food focus has increased a lot from baseline, which is normal. But again, it's a reality check of at a certain point that is unavoidable. Like, you will get food focused. That is just a biological response almost. And yeah, functioning socially and being a good boyfriend for my girlfriend, you know, that just becomes like something to manage, and you have to be very intentional about it. And probably you get better at it over time. Like, I know Eric, for example, has these stories of what a shitty human being he has been in earlier contest preps, where it just consumed all of his life. And now, after doing this for several years, he has gotten much better at it. But yeah, and the sleep, as we talked about it last time, I'm not at all a sleeping champion, and it's the first thing to go anyway. And now at this low body fat percentage plus the deficit, yeah, I just pop up pretty predictably, like 5 or 6 hours after I go to bed. And then I have to stay in bed for another 1 or 2 hours, just lie there and eventually like meditate myself back to sleep. It is tough. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, other than that, not much else other than I've been just geeking out a lot on optimizing sleep as much as I could. And like you, I had a great conversation with Greg Potter,
Right.
and that has been an incredibly insightful interview. I really loved everything that he shared, and I tried to implement a lot of stuff. And I ordered myself a new orange, one of those blue blocking glasses. So I hope to see some nice benefits from those. That's about the fitness front. And otherwise, how has content been for you? What are your what have been the main focus of yours lately, and what are your plans going forward with your podcast and videos and stuff like that? And have you had any kind of ideas or revelations about like what direction you want to go to with your content, or how is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is interesting to just see how many people have podcasts. I mean, again, this isn't new, but like when I started, I saw it's actually been almost exactly a year now, which is kind of crazy to think I've already been doing it for a year. And I mean, I'm around like 2,000 subscribers, so it's nothing, it's nothing crazy for a year, but it's, I mean, this is a part-time thing for me, so it's something that still keeps me busy. But I definitely noticed, and one of the reasons that I never really made a YouTube channel in the first place before the podcast idea was like, I have these thoughts on it, but after 50 videos, I'm just not gonna, I'm gonna state most of my beliefs, and then that's it. And I don't want to just be repeating myself. The reason I did the podcast is because I get to talk to so many different people, and I find that really interesting. You can look at certain people out there, like, Jason Blahar or people like that who just literally have probably made the same video 20 times. And it's like, which in a sense, I don't even want to like knock them too much, because it's like, that's their income, right? So like people are watching the videos, they put out the same content over and over, people keep watching, they make money. So, it makes sense. It's just not something that I have any interest in doing. And even some of like the good people, again, I probably won't name specific names there, but, some of the people that we all respect, it's still the same videos over and over. And I have no interest in doing that. And I don't have a need to do that because, like I said, it's not really my source of income. So I just like to do stuff that I actually genuinely find interesting. And sometimes that is a video. If I get a few people asking questions, I'll answer a video on that, or maybe I'll start doing like Q&As. But I kind of just do, Danny Lennon, like he talks about how like on his podcast, he'll just kind of have like themes and like, whatever he's interested in. And I kind of feel the same way, where it's like, if this is an interest of mine, I'll bring those people on. And most of the time it is related to like health and fitness. But I might start branching out from that a little bit just because I find it interesting. And hopefully the people who listen find it interesting too. And I think you've also said that, and Jacob Skeptis has said it, how like you're not just gonna have people on for the sake of having people on. I think that's when things kind of start going downhill with content,
Yeah, it is. I think what that comes down to is what your goal is and who you want to be. Like, first of all, are you trying to create a business, or is it a hobby? That is a big determinant, because if it's a hobby, just do whatever you enjoy doing. If it's a business, are you trying to be a science communicator, someone like Danny, or are you trying to set up a personal brand? Because if it's the latter, then repeating yourself and saying the same things over and over again is part of the game. Like, it is part of the sport. I mean,
right.
Look at, you mentioned people that you didn't want to name. Like, I will mention Brett Schoenfeld, for example. I mean, he is a pioneer. Like, one day he will go down in the history books as, one of the most influential figures in the field of hypertrophy science, if not the most influential at this point. And, Instagram, I'm opening it and I'm seeing a post from him like, hey, carbs after 6 p.m. don't make you fat, or something like that. And it's like, and I'm kind of making fun of it internally, or maybe I will send it to a friend. It's like, holy shit, dude, have you seen this? And we are kind of laughing at it. But at the same time, he's not creating that post for me. He's creating it for the people that potentially just started following him on Instagram that day. And for a portion of those, that's going to be actually brand new information. And that's something, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously, if you think of someone like Greg O'Gallagher, Kino Buddy, literally out of the 1,500 videos that he has done, probably 800 of those are on intermittent fasting. The next 500 is about black coffee, and then the next 300 is about training 3 days a week and doing overhead press and incline bench. But but it's and we can knock that, but at the same time, like it is clearly working. Like
Sure.
I discovered his channel probably 5 years into him doing it already. And to me at the time, those new videos were new, even though some other people have seen it 1,000 times. Yeah, it is just something that you kind of have to come to grips with. It's almost like an elementary school teacher who is another year, another first grade class that he has to teach, 5 plus 5 is 10.
Right. Well, actually, yeah, that's what I was going to say is, as much as I might say like, oh, that's not necessarily what I want to do, that's every job, right? Like every job is typically the same thing every single day, right? I mean, not literally always the same, but most jobs you're going in there, you're doing whatever your task is, and you're going in the next day and you're doing the same thing. When you're a teacher, right? You're teaching the same material every year, different students, but you're teaching the same thing. So to your point, yeah, these people, they're putting out the same videos, but there's a new audience. Not to mention that people like to watch things that are up to date, right? Like, MMA is getting really big. And there are videos from like 2 years ago that might be discussing something that's still relevant now, but people don't want to watch something that's 2 years old. Even if Omar Isuf is another guy who puts out a lot of similar content, right? But he might have a how to bench video from 3 years ago, and a newcomer would rather see a new how to bench video just because people like to be up to date with things. They like to see what's currently going on, and they like to be a part of something. And if they go back and read, or they see the comments from 3 years ago, it's like, well, this isn't happening in my real time. I want to see it happening now. And so I don't actually think it's a bad idea. It's just, for me personally at this point, it's just not what I want to do. But again, I've only been doing it for a year, so there's not even the time to really repeat myself that much.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention, that is absolutely true. First of all, like it literally just happened to me the other day. I wanted to watch some kind of an instructional video on some funky exercise or something. And there was a video done by maybe Jeff Nippard, and then another one made by some other guy, or maybe Jeff Nippard as well. But the point is, 2 videos, and I know both of them are credible sources, but one of them was 3 years old, and the other one was 9 months old. And it's like, okay, so probably both of them are equally valid in terms of the actual information in it. But, it's an intuitive thing, or like an instinctive thing. You're clicking on the newer thing. It's just wired into us. But the other thing is, sometimes even if you knew certain things already, sometimes if you're invested into that particular topic, like in this case fitness, you just want to hear that same thing over and over again. Like, and even if you have heard it before, it's just nice to hear it again. Like when I'm clicking,
sure, it reinforces your belief.
Yeah, and it's just like maybe there will be another point in it, or like an affirmation almost. Of course, it can get funny at a certain point. Like I'm not gonna watch another Kino Buddy video on intermittent fasting, but
right.
But yeah, a big revelation that I had. Part of the reason why I asked you this is because, like, for me originally, what I set out to do with my YouTube channel and my podcast is that I actually wanted to help people. Like I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. Part of that is, of course, the interviews and bringing good information. Like I don't think you can ever hear Eric Helms talking about things enough, because he is just such a thoughtful person, just lights things from so many different angles and brings so many new perspectives. And he's also updating his own perspectives continuously. So that is always a valuable thing. But I personally wanted to be a part of other people creating a positive change for themselves. And what I noticed in the past couple of months, I mean, I kind of noticed it for a while, but I haven't faced it in terms of actually taking action on that recognition, is that I kind of just created a community of mental masturbators for myself, if I'm being honest. Like not everybody, of course. And it's not even I'm not saying that like pejoratively, like I am that in many ways myself. I love mentally masturbating on things. But just this other day, someone told me like, hey, could you make a video or a post about your 7-day-a-week training and how you're making that work in terms of recovery and stuff? And just a couple of months ago, I would have been like, awesome, thank you, dude. Great idea. I'm going to make that video. And now I was like, honestly, ma'am, I would rather not, because those types of videos tend to attract a particular type of audience that are just going to be like calling me out and getting into discussions on YouTube, either politely or not so politely, about like SRA curves and whatever. And that is just not my mission. Like that is not going to create a positive change in anybody's lives. It's just going to lead to mental masturbation. I don't know if you've had that thought at any point. Yeah,
for sure. Well, first, I think the quote of the day is, I love to mentally masturbate onto things. That'll be the highlight
yeah.
for Instagram. But yeah, I think that's, and it kind of ties into another question that we had talked about, like saying the false promises from the evidence-based crew versus, like the steroid-enhanced crew. I think it kind of goes into that because what happens is, and this is very common, you get people who are really into this and they want to do everything they can. And so they want to believe that because I'll talk with some of these people and I'll always kind of say, and not always, but I'll kind of clarify sometimes like, okay, but like to be clear, it's not going to make that much of a difference. Like I've had Steve Hall on with Jacob Skeptis a few times and we'll talk and they'll say, well, I'm doing this and then I'm, increasing my volume over this time and et cetera, et cetera. And even Mike Israel, who is like the king of promoting the volume landmarks, has said that for most people, it won't make that much of a difference, which is, I think, honest of him, which is good. And of course, he's not just going to keep saying that, right? He's not going to make every post say, hey, just so you know, this isn't that big of a difference. He's just going to point out, his thoughts on it. But I think it's very easy to forget that when you're looking at all these details, a lot of them don't really matter that much. And as people who are obsessed, you want to do as much as possible, right? Like one story I've told several times is like all the social times that I missed out in high school, right? So in high school, I would literally like not go out late because I had to get up early at 5 a.m. to go to the gym with my dad. I wouldn't eat pizza when we were being social because I had to have my chicken and broccoli, whatever. And like that was not a good call, but not only was it not a good decision, it didn't even help me. Like it would have just been better to just like enjoy my time, just lift consistently. And I'd be in the exact same position that I am today with a less like negative outlook on that period of high school. And so we look at all these details and it's not that you shouldn't try to optimize. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to program optimally or you shouldn't try to like get your nutrition set. There is something to be said for trying to optimize it when you can. But I think with how much that stuff, and that also ties back into what I was saying before about like how much content can you really put out? How many times can you just say, these are the basics, that's what you should follow? If we have a new study that shows that there was a benefit from this little thing, well, that's what we're going to talk about. But I think you always have to remember that like we already know what does 95% of it, right? You've got your genetics, that's a huge part of it, and you've got consistency with the basics, and that's most of it. And it's fun to talk about these other things, and I personally like to, and I think you at times like to talk about those things as well. It's not that we're not interested in them. It's just I don't want people to get wrapped up in the idea that like this is now their whole life and they need to focus on those things. So like one specific example, somebody asked me, I never really replied to it too much, but they had asked me in an Instagram message, they like DM'd me and they said like, oh, like what are your thoughts on velocity training? And I just said, well, I'm not really that into it. And they said, oh, well, why not? And I said, well, maybe I'll make a video on it. I just didn't like getting into it that much there. But my thoughts on it is that like, can it benefit you? Probably, based on the studies, there's some small benefit compared to like not doing it in the short term. We don't know long term if it would matter. But do I really think that if you get like a Nintendo unit and you're setting up and you're determining, oh, well, it was 0.33 meters per second there, and that, that really means I should stop 1 second earlier. That to me is getting so obsessive with it that outside of a training study environment, it's just not helping you. It's like defining like this like mental masturbation of like, oh, should I stop there or there? I don't know anybody who's making amazing progress here who's obsessing over something like velocity training. And again, I'm not trying to like, shit on the researchers who look into that or anything like that. It's just, I think it's easy to go down this rabbit hole of looking for optimality rather than just looking at the big picture.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like a fascinating thing from an anthropological or like a sociological perspective. Like, I cannot really answer the question of why are we doing this. Like, a lot of the things that you mentioned, that you did a lot of things which not only were not necessary, but didn't even help you. I mean, a very classic thing I would have done earlier on is that if I knew that I will have to take 3 days off from the gym, then I would do like double the volume for the 3 prior days. Now,
definitely, yep.
When I was doing that, deep down, I kind of knew that this didn't make any sense. Like, it just doesn't work out that way, that, okay, I'm doing double the work in this day, whereas I was pushing the envelope pretty hard to begin with. I cannot force my body to recover twice as fast just because I'm taking 3 days off. Or maybe in that time frame I actually could, but let's say it's a week. So I'm going to do 2 days for a week and double the volume. That doesn't make any sense. And probably the only thing I'm actually accomplishing is pushing myself to overreaching or something that week, risking injury. And a month from now, I will be at the exact same place as I would be if I just took that week off and didn't do anything. So the big question is, why did I do that then? Because I knew that doesn't make sense, but did I do it because there was just this fear that I couldn't suppress inside of me that I'm going to regress? Or was it just something to make my soul feel better? or was it just something that I found to be fun and enjoying at the moment? Because a lot of these things, like, yeah, I also skipped out on a lot of social events and I wouldn't eat and even a bite of something because no, I'm not breaking my diet. But on some level, it was fun for me to do it. Like while I was doing those ridiculous things, there was a part of me which just felt empowered by all of that. But I honestly cannot really pin it down to anything like why we are doing these things. Like what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes into a little bit deeper, psychological, even than most of the things I've done. Just because, like, I know that when I look back on my own specific example, I really did think that it was helping me. Like, I truly believe that it was. So at least in those situations, that was why. Although even then, I do remember talking to myself at times, and like when I was freshman in college, and just thinking like, no, like I can drink, like it'd be fine if I just have a drink here, like, and I objectively knew that. But there was just something about it. If I felt like I was like quitting or something, or like another example was like every Christmas morning, I would do like this super high volume workout because I had a gym in my basement. And I was like, oh man, well, I'm having this huge refeed. So if I do this super high volume, I'll have all this compensation and I'll gain more muscle, as if like that was going to happen on one day. Right.
Yeah.
But I did believe it at the time. And now it's like I either don't train or I'll just do like a normal workout that day. But I do think that there's something in like, I don't know if you're kind of type A in the rest of your life. I definitely am personally. And there's something about like, not leaving any stone unturned. And for me, if I have a goal, it's really hard for me to accept not hitting that goal if I haven't done everything that I can do. I mean, I've gone to like ridiculous lengths at times to make sure that something happened just because I felt like I would regret it if I didn't. Like, it could just be like a silly little thing, but it's like, man, like I need to complete this or else it's going to bother me that I didn't. And so with lifting and stuff, I've kind of gotten away from that. But like, maybe there was a workout that I was just like really just like dragging. And I knew that it wasn't even productive for me to like finish it, but it was like, no, like I have to do this even if it sucks. And don't get me wrong, like there's a time and place for that. I'm not saying just anytime you want to like, give up on something, you should do it. But in the case of like you, where like you at that time, it sounds like you objectively knew it didn't matter and you still felt the need to do it. Which again, I think that just goes back to like maybe like a deeper sense of wanting to feel accomplished, not wanting to like quit, wanting to show that you can do it and make up for it. Or, a lot of times we'll talk about how everybody wants to be hardcore. That was a big thing for me. It was like, no, like that's who I am. So like, even though like I'm hurting myself, like I want to deadlift as much as possible because like that's what you do when you're hardcore. And to not be that guy anymore, I mean, that's our identity. And if everybody we know knows us as that person, it becomes very hard to step away from that.
Yeah, and I think I kind of have an answer to that, but I want to come back to this for a second and want to take a step back to something we started to touch on here. And that is sort of the diminishing returns when it comes to fitness. And when I'm saying fitness, I really mean lifting to get more muscular and eating to get leaner. Like that's where these diminishing return rates are really kicking in. Because when you're training for powerlifting, for example, it's kind of a different game because, there is always little things you can actually tweak to get a little bit stronger because there are so many variables there. Hypertrophy, specific factors, and then nervous system factors, technique, like a lot of things, weight manipulation, like that's an actually a very complex game compared to just lifting to get jacked. But I recently heard an interview with Menno Henselmans. And like, don't get me wrong, Menno is, my top 4 favorite fitness experts in no particular order are Eric Helms, Mike Israetel, Greg Knuckles, and Menno. Like, I just love those guys. And Menno is probably in the top 2, actually, within that. So, I consume pretty much everything that he puts out. I really, really love that guy. But he said something which was, he really loves geeking out on lifting and fitness because it's not like other areas of life. Like, for example, playing an instrument where you can just do that a lot and you will get better over time. But in lifting, you really have to think and figure things out, and because otherwise you get stuck. And once you figure that out, then you can get going again. And I was listening to that and I was like, man, I honestly think as much as I love how that sounds, that it's kind of the exact opposite in that I think lifting is one of those very few areas of life where you need to understand a couple of things, but literally like 3, 4, 5 things, which you could summarize in one sentence probably, and take action on those, and you would be pretty much set for the rest of your life. And anything else on top of that is not going to move the needle that much on top of it. And yeah, sure, like when you get stuck as an intermediate advanced lifter, there are a couple of more strategies that you can implement or should implement if you want to keep progressing. But even that is another like 4 bullet points probably that you can summarize in a sentence. And so I was listening to this, man, it's kind of the exact opposite of what you're saying, I think.
Yeah. It's tough because like also, I don't know like how much individual coaching you do, but as anybody who coaches people, it almost sounds like you're convincing people not to work with you, right? Because it's like, well, you don't really need that much detail versus the person who says, oh, well, I've got these secrets and I can really like get you here if you just follow this exact protocol. And sometimes they actually believe what they're selling, but I don't think that that's like the right way to look at it. First of all, hopefully if you're coaching people, you're genuinely trying to help them, right? And not just like trick people into feeling like they need you. But secondly, I think a huge number of people who are trying to get fit fall into either the category of people who are overly obsessive and need help to not be so obsessive, or people who are getting started who still need that guidance anyway. I mean, that's largely who I work with. I don't tend to be working with people who are like super advanced, who have all their shit together, who have already gotten like the lifestyle down and everything there. Those people, they might need a coach for like a contest prep, but other than that, like not so much. The people who I tend to work with are people who are like really just trying to get into the fitness scene, trying to kind of learn the ropes, or they've been doing it. I think the most recent person who signed up just a few days ago was like somebody who, they have a good build, but they're still trying to kind of get at a point. They told me their goal was basically to like gain another, maybe like 15 or so pounds of muscle and then just be able to maintain. They're not looking to be super obsessive. They're looking to like get to this goal and then incorporate it into their lifestyle, which is exactly what I promote, right? So I think it's nice to be able to say, oh, if I could figure out these little details here and there. I just don't think that it matters that much. I think when I look around me, so many people are doing so many different things, and it doesn't seem like that's the difference between their success, right? I mean, I hate to be that guy just like talking about genetics all the time, but that to me is the number one thing is genetics and then your consistency with it. I didn't see Menno's posts. I probably should follow him more. He's actually one of like the only people I don't really follow that much. But I probably should look into his stuff more. But I'd have to see it myself, but it sounds like I would agree with what you're saying over what he said.
Yeah. And what you just said about the people that you're helping in your coaching, I mean, that's I do coaching myself as well, and the people who end up signing up and who get on the call with me to discuss their goals and challenges and whatever, and who actually end up becoming clients are those where I can feel that, okay, I can contribute to this person's success either because they don't have the fundamentals down, and I can help giving them a shortcut basically to get there, figure out that whole thing while we're working together, plus or giving them that extra accountability that they might have been lacking in. Like if someone is trying to lose fat, for example, a lot of the times everybody knows you don't have to be a fitness person to know that probably you need to be eating less and moving more in a general sense. But a lot of people just don't have the self-discipline or courage, or they just need someone to hold them accountable, or just tell them objectively, like, okay, this is what you're going to do. I don't want to be second guessing myself, so I'm going to hire someone for that. So it's the relationship that a lot of people buy into, not necessarily your magical power to micromanage a whole bunch of variables. Like that is coaching in a sense. And even that is even the case for someone who is going through a contest prep. I mean, someone who is signing up for 3D muscle journey or something to get ready for a contest prep. I mean, a lot of those guys are pretty well trained already. They know a lot of the stuff. They probably have read Eric's books and stuff like that. They just need someone to keep them accountable throughout a really monumental effort that they have to go through. So yeah, I would agree with you there. So if you, speaking about the fundamentals versus the nitty gritty stuff, like I have done a lot of crazy stuff. Looking back, I pushed the envelope like crazy. And I know that you have been experimenting with all kinds of stuff as well, and you have been pushing the envelope at times more than other times. Like if you're looking at your physique now, like where you have ended up, like at what do you think is the minimum amount of training days and like the most simplistic setup you could have employed to get where you are now versus what you were doing?
Okay, that's actually an interesting question. So you're saying not what's the minimal amount I could do to maintain, but like that could have gotten me to this point?
Yeah. And like if you can briefly contrast it to what you were actually doing at certain times.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely tough. I mean, of course, there's no way to actually know. Man, I would guess that if nutrition, sleep, everything else was exactly the same, I probably could have gotten to where I am now. I don't know, man. Maybe even doing, I wouldn't be surprised, I'll say, if 2 full body workouts a week would have gotten there. It would have taken longer for sure. But I mean, again, you have to remember I'm 15 years into this now. So I really haven't put on what I would say like substantial muscle or anything probably I would say probably about 4 years, you know. By the time I was like 24, I had already been lifting for 12 years then. So I was pretty much done as far as the actual size. You know, I've gotten like leaner since then, but you know, in terms of like actual muscle mass, I would bet that I probably could have gotten similar with 2 days a week there. But I mean, to your point in the post that you earlier reference, part of it is your enjoyment, right? I mean, there are people who love training every single day. One of the things I made on my vacation post was that like I love on vacation to get up early, get some coffee, just kind of have some me time, and then go to the gym and then eat. And I did that every single day pretty much on my cruise just because that's what I enjoyed doing. So I'm definitely not telling people like, oh, and you said this too, some people are like, oh, like you're too obsessive if you go more than like X number of days per week. And I wouldn't agree with that either. I mean, I remember, I don't know if you heard my podcast with Brian Haycock, but you know, he's a really smart guy, but I remember him saying he thought it was obsessive that I've never taken more than a week off in like 14 years. And I was kind of surprised he said that because to me, like, why would I need more than a week off? Like, I like lifting. So why would I need more than that? Like, cause I had surgery. So I was off for like 3 weeks and I was like, this is the longest I've ever had that. And he was acting as like if that was strange. And I was like, I think it'd be strange for somebody to feel the need to take off more than that. Just because, not that it's a huge problem if they need to, but like, I like lifting. So it's not an issue. So I think people can kind of lift as much as they want or not, but I think you can get by on a lot. And certainly if you're talking about maintenance, I mean, I've been shocked at times at how little I can do to maintain. I mean, even like, for example, I used to squat and deadlift like all the time. I've done Bulgarian training where I was squatting around 400 pounds, 4 to 6 days a week. I was definitely doing a lot. And after, some back issues and things like that, I pretty much cut those out entirely for a while. And I was just doing machines. And that was like once a week I was doing, machines. And, my leg circumference really didn't change at all. Now, I'm not going to say there was like no muscle loss, but it obviously wasn't significant enough to like decrease the measurements, and I was a similar leanness. So, I have been very surprised at how easy it is to maintain as long as you're still doing something.
All right, folks, so as the video title suggests, this was part 1, and Dave and I agreed that part 2 would go up on his channel, so you can continue watching it there. So you can get more familiar with his content, his audience can get more familiar with my content. Although I have a bigger subscriber base, am I being tricked here? Not sure. Haven't thought about it yet. Anyway, go ahead to his channel. The link is in the description, and feel free to watch the rest of this talk, and it will be really cool. We are covering a few more cool topics, and if you want to listen to this whole thing all at once, then the audio file is in the description, so you can listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and a whole bunch of other places, I guess. All kinds of podcasting platforms you can access the audio version, so you don't have to split that up in 2 parts. You can just listen to it all at once. So thank you. And once again, if you're new here, subscribe, like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and see you in the next video. As promised in this episode, actually probably with my transformation journey, which will be one hell of an epic video. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and with that, see you next time, guys.